REFORMA is a national association to promote library and information services to our Latino, Latina, and Spanish-speaking community. We also promote and support the recruitment of bilingual and bicultural library workers and library professionals. Really excited and happy to be a part of the presentation today, and excited to hear from our library professionals and our writers and our artists that are here presenting this program. So I would like to thank Ziba, Rosa, Ivan, and Madar for showcasing your talents and your ideas and connecting it to our library folks and our creative folks out there in terms of how zines bring our communities together, how zines are expressing and preserving our cultures and creating that connection and bringing that artistry and your professionalism into the library world. So I am excited to be here with you all today, and also to be able to present this on behalf of Reforma National. So I will turn it back to Ziba so we can learn from all the creative folks here today. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction. I'm happy to be here with you and Rosa and Medar and Ivan. So I'm going to go down the list. And Rosa is a reference and instruction librarian and information studies professor. Medar is a cartoonist and illustrator. Ivan is a Mexican writer and zinester. And I'm Ziba, a zine librarian at the Los Angeles Public Library and the Los Angeles Zine Fest and American Library Association Zine Pavillion co-organizer. So I'm here at the Van Nuys Branch Library. We have a zine collection, but I'm gonna start with Rosa. What inspired you to start making zines?
Hi, everyone. My name is Rosa Celestino Bernal, and thank you for having me today. Yeah, so I started doing zines and making them actually by organizing events back in 2011 in Santa Ana, that's in Orange County. And I remember that's pretty much the first time that I heard of zines. And then after that, I coordinated the first Orange County Zine Fest in Santa Ana, and then started making zines with others, but mainly organizing events and getting others to showcase their own art and zines. But fast forward to today, as one of the final projects for my information literacy courses, and which, you know, they're pretty much introductory courses to information library resources that are available. And by using the American College Research Library Association ACRL framework for the courses, the final project for my students are actually zines. So they have to create a zine and turn it in as their final project instead of writing a paper. And yeah, so yeah, but pretty much just the community behind making zines is what really inspired me, and having that specific like bond and mutual relationships and stuff like that is what really inspires me.
Thank you, Rosa. It's great to hear that it can be part of the academic library and assignments and how you got started. And now we're going to go with Medar. You're a cartoonist and illustrator, also making many comics, and I've seen your work. What inspired you to start making zines?
I think a couple of things. But first of all, thank you so much, everyone. My name is Medar. I'm happy to be here. Yeah, I think I was making zines before I knew it, and I think I was absorbing them before I knew it. So it's kind of fuzzy about in regards to being specific, but I became aware that I was making zines and what they were called when I was in college, thanks to a zine librarian at the college that I was at, who I believe is now a librarian at the Getty. Speaking about Simone Fujita, who is an amazing zine librarian and a librarian who worked at Art Center College of Design in Pasadena when I was a student. And while I was there, Simone was organizing Art Center's first zine collection. So this was the first time that, as far as I know, that students at the university who were currently studying at the university had their work in the circulating collection. There were plenty of books and material from alumni who, you know, published their books professionally. But this is the first opportunity to actually have independently published work by students who are still there, still students. So I was working at the library at the time, and I got to be Simone's zine intern. And I got to help Simone organize zine workshops. And I kind of ran with the format and even before graduating, and began hosting zine workshops at the Pasadena Public Library on my own. The one at La Pintoresca, which is in kind of close to Altadena in Pasadena on Fair Oaks. So that kind of got me going. And to this day, I'm still teaching zine workshops. I actually am here in New York City. I finished one in Staten Island yesterday. It was a series of once a week creative aging workshops, specifically for folks over the age of 55. And I've seen how zines can be so approachable and accessible to people of all ages. I I've taught them to children in the age as low as young as 4 years old and 5 years old, and then adults in their 80s and 90s. So that's kind of the beauty for me about zines, that you know, they're accessible. I forget what the question was, but I think that's what somewhat covers it.
Oh yes, what inspired you to start making zines? So it sounds like at a art school or in Pasadena with Simone and
Yeah. Yeah. Being able, it's not just about making them, but it's like the educational factor behind it. It's like being able to host zine workshops has been like almost half of the reason why I love zines so much. The other half is just being able to make my own zines and buy zines and go to zine fairs and trade. I always like there's a joke that I always say that at a zine fair, the same $5 bill is floating around the entire zine fair, because people are, you know, selling their zines, and then they get that $5 and then they go buy another zine in the same fair. And then, you know, so it's like an indirect form of trading sometimes, like to buy and sell zines, I've noticed. And then some people just actually, you know, they tend to trade with the people tabling directly next to them at a zine fair. So I just love that aspect of zine workshops, zine fairs, and then bookstores and libraries that have zine collections. That's all.
oh, thank you so much. And we'll ask the same of Ivan. What inspired you to start making zines?
Thank you, Ziba. Glad to be here as well. And similar to Madar, I've always been um, involved in making small, um, say, publishing projects. I've always been writing. even before I knew what a zine was. But it was mainly sort of a need to put writing out there, specifically with poetry and some photography I had been doing. And having worked in nonprofit spaces, as well as having done some internships with independent publications, I had seen a bit of a process with the traditional forms of publishing, where you get agents, editors, whole process to get your work out there. But zines were a more direct, do-it-yourself vehicle to start doing that work. And it's not so much that you skip steps, but you'd rather take control of almost all of them. And this was about 5 years ago that I really wanted to have my own zine out there. And it was also thanks to my partner in college that she introduced me to zines as I know them now. And we made a poetry zine, just collection of 10 poems or so, and put together a binded little chapbook. That was one way that I began, but I also wanted to turn the focus into the community around me, and having borrowed from the format of publishing journals or literary journals, where it's a collective of art authors' work in there. We wanted to do the same, but in a zine format. So instead of having 30 authors or 30 artists in one collection, we kind of cut that in half and have zines that are that include like 15 artists and writers. And with that project, I called it Drifter Zine, and it's a publication run with my partner as well. One latest issue that we just did is called Mi Casa Su Casa, and totally borrowing from my Latino phrase, also very well said in Mexico, to focus on housing. So every issue that we put out has a theme to it, and that's the latest one we chose. And so that has continued to inspire us and kind of keep us in touch with, grounded with the either social justice issues we care about, or even the artistry that we want to express and invite others to contemplate. So it has been an evolving set of sources of inspiration, but it all comes down to really expressing creative ideas with community.
Thank you. I love that zine. You have Mi Casa Su Casa. We have that at the Van Nuys Public Library now. So if anyone wants to check it out, come on down to the Van Nuys branch. And my next question for everyone, starting with, again, back to Rosa, is how do you approach your creative process when making zines? And I know we have your zine here as well, and that was about, or the one that we have is the Indigenous Voices. How do you approach creating that?
Yeah, so the way that I've approached that specific scene, it was via utilizing Canva. I'm sure many of you have heard of Canva, and there's the pro version, which you can get as an educator, and if you're a student, you can also get that version. But pretty much that specific scene, going back to that one, it's about Nahua, and the way that I approached it with my colleague is that we were trying to figure out a way to make something unique that hasn't been done in the past, and that's by doing it bilingual. So it's in English and translating some of the words in Nahuatl, which for many of you that haven't heard of specifically what Nahuatl is, it's the main indigenous language that is still spoken today all throughout Mexico, specifically in southern Mexico. So Puebla, parts of Oaxaca and Veracruz, and also in El Salvador. And that was the main language that dominated prior to being colonized by Spain. And actually, my dad, his whole family, they're native speakers of Nahuatl, and when they were very little, going into their kindergarten year, they had to learn Spanish. So for me, it was something more than just making it look nice or pretty or creating it. It was more about something to showcase and saying that, hey, this language is still spoken, because it is. And actually I had not sure if this is going off topic, but luckily they did offer this to learn Nahuatl, and you could still learn it in various the program is called EDS, IDIEZ, and it's an institute based in Zacatecas, and they have a lot of partnerships with, mainly they started with Yale, and there is a map actually in the zine of how it started. Started in Yale, the partnership to teach Nahuatl in higher education and higher institutions, and then UCLA, and that's where I actually got my library and information science degree. And I did a dual degree in Latin American studies, and for that specific degree, I had to take an indigenous language, and that was one of them. And the reason why I chose that program was because I was able to learn that language, and it goes back to my own ancestry. So I can say, yeah, that's how I was inspired, and mainly took that in order to create something that was never done. And actually going to different zine fests, people would write about the history of Latin American languages and indigenous languages. And there is one that I do have from actually from other well, they were classmates at the time, that the reasons why it's important to learn indigenous languages. And yeah, so that's pretty much how I've been approaching. And for the most part, in other scenes that I've made that I haven't really like displayed or anything, it's just mainly poetry and a lot of visual, like things more abstract rather than anything, and a lot of music inspiration. So yeah.
We had a question in the chat. They want to know the name of the program to see if they can learn it online. And I heard you say IDZ from Zacatecas. I looked it up and I found a little article on it. It's a Mexican nonprofit corporation that works with indigenous students in the Zacatecas State University, if that's right. And they say who are native speakers of Nahuatl. So no.
Yeah. So yeah, and there's different, like, I know other nonprofits. I know that Centro Cultural de Mexico and Santa Ana was teaching it at some point. And there's another one in LA. I can't recall, but if I find it, I'll send it over. And there might be different what's it called? Ways to join. I'm not sure if you have to be a student though, so there might be different ways, but yeah.
Thank you. And that
Yeah,
zine
thank you.
is here at the library. So if anyone wants to check it out and is near Van Nuys branch, come check out our zine collection. And thank you, Rosa. And I'm gonna ask the same question now from Medar. So how do you approach your creative process when making zines?
It's been a while since I've made my own zine, so I think the best way to respond to that is how did I do it this week with the zines that I made and the workshops that I've been hosting. This week, or the workshop that I just finished called a creative aging course, was meeting once a week, and the topic was visual journalism, which is what I would say I specialize in. So I essentially, the first week, made a quick run through of like how to experience a zine or any physical book format, which is breaking down certain terminology. For example, a single page or a spread, and just introducing things like this. I think it helps a lot with understanding that if you can experience a spread, you're actually looking at 2 pages, but you can think of them as one big page, right? Things like this sort of got people going, and I also went about it in an interesting way because that I don't think I've done before. Knowing that that we were going to meet a total of 7 times, I would actually use a timer, and I would give everyone on the first day of class or of the workshop 3 to 4 minutes each to speak about what it is that they might be interested in exploring. And I was encouraging folks to think about the history of the neighborhood that they live in, because it's very immediate. And oh, Alfonso's here. What's up, Alfonso? I can't see I can't see the Alfonsos in the list here, but I'm excited to know that you're listening. Alfonso was a librarian or is a librarian at Art Center's library. Anyway, so we spent 3 minutes each speaking about what it is that we might. The first class is tell me a little bit about yourself and where you live and how long you've lived in this neighborhood. And I would essentially tell people it was interesting. This is the first time I've ever given a homework assignment for a workshop. Normally, when I teach these workshops, the idea is to make a zine and spend all the creative time in the physical space of the workshop. But this is one of the few opportunities I've worked with adults. I trust them to, especially retired adults, I trust them to have the time, find the time to work on something between our first meeting and our second meeting. So I actually, we spent almost zero time during our 1-hour meetings, which were once a week, actually making anything. We spent most of the time listening to each other present about our progress and giving each other feedback. And then 1 page at a time or 1 spread at a time, mostly it was 1 spread at a time. We got through almost 2 entire months, where at the end of the 2 months, a zine was made. So to answer your question, and that's not only for how I teach the zines, but how I came about creating them when I was a student, really. I was part of a comics club in college, and we would meet regularly, not so much to work on our zine, it was just to hang out. But we were essentially creating community, and by creating community, we were creating accountability, so that when somebody who ran the club gave us the deadline of turning in a page or two for the zine, we knew that we really wanted to do it because we knew the people who were going to read it, you know what I mean? And so that's how it worked for these workshops. People need to know that they have an audience, I think, is what I took away from that. They need to know that they have an audience in order to hit a deadline or to make a zine happen. For me, um I probably would never actually finish a zine if there wasn't a zine fair that I needed to finish it by. So a lot of the zines that I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I've been like at the zine fair, like folding and stapling while the zine fair is happening. I mean, it's um, so a lot of what I think that's how zines happen. Zines don't just happen; they happen because and fanzines happen because of a music show coming up, right? Things happen because of a gathering. The gathering is what creates the zine in a way. Without the gathering for the zines to be distributed, I don't think they would ever happen. So I think that's like my most abstract answering of that question.
Thank you. That's how I do it too. I need the deadline to make a zine, and we have your zine here also at Van Nuys branch, and I linked the catalog record in the chat so everyone can even place it on hold and have it sent to your local City of LA library. And we had a question also asking, is your workshop online? I believe it's in person in New York, right? Your 1 hour a week workshop is not online, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, and yeah, there are in specific library branches. Maybe I that's something that'll happen in the future, but for now they're and they're coming to an end already. So but yeah, all the workshops I've ever done have been in person. In the future, probably I'll do one online.
Thank you. I loved hearing about those. And there's a comment in the chat. The first night of the Olympia Zine Fest is always after hours at the library. It's open for folks to hang out and use copiers and other supplies to finish zines. That's so fun. Zine Fest in the library and hanging out and making zines. I love that. Thank you. And now we're gonna ask the same of Ivan. So how do you approach your creative process when making zines, Ivan?
Yeah, it's interesting to hear we all kind of need a deadline for these things to get done. Same here. I've also stapled my zines at LA Zine Fest, for example, or any other event that we have. But I think the ones that I've finalized and have seen through from beginning to end and have been able to distribute multiple copies of my zines or the zines that I make with my partner for Drifter. They've all started with the title or that really embodies the topic we want to tackle. So even with my personal zines, I made one called Aquarius Love, and that was really all about kind of exploring this feeling through your zodiac sign. Me being Aquarius, I decided to do that, but because it was a poetry zine, I wanted to also translate it and have it be available bilingually. It started out with one poem, and it was just a one piece in throughout the zine, but then I expanded it to have like 5 different pieces in the zine and just kind of have a different version for another zine fair. So that's also something that I keep in mind, that one version of the zine I have is not a definite version. In fact, it's one edition. So things could be in constant flux, and I think you get that freedom with this format specifically. And so thinking about language is something that I approach a lot through my creative processes, because a lot of what I write, I want it to be receptive to an English speaking audience, but also Spanish speaking. And I'm only here in the US, but through a lot of the zine fairs hosted in Southern California, there is a lot of exchange between Mexico, the US, people that also make zines in south of the border. And they come to these events and we can exchange, trade a lot of the work we do. So that way, when some folks come to the zine fair from Tijuana or Mexico City, I'm able to give them a few of the zines left over, and they can then take that and distribute it to their bookstores or wherever they are able to. So I keep that in mind a lot, because I definitely want to have my work read to a Latino audience, and that's also a main component of the why I write, and it affects the format I end up choosing for a zine. Some of the fanzines I've made are actually of TV shows. I mean, I have this one of Chavo del Ocho, and this is a phrase that is in the TV show of Te voy a descalabrar los cachetes, like I'm gonna knock your teeth out. But yeah, I mean that's just, I think that there's a connection I can make with someone that sees this, and we kind of have this childhood shared experience individually. So really it's all through topics and titles that come to mind right away, and it becomes an impulse to just follow that creative impulse and continue the work through that idea that you're centering around. And so like that, a lot of zines have been made. Some are of place. I'm a lot in Venice or in the Valley and San Fernando, and also Echo Park. So place is also very influential to my work, as it is through photography. So a lot of the time I'm capturing things found on the street, and just from that kind of just from that work, I could compile enough images to make a mini zine. So yeah.
Thank you. I have a question. Where can libraries buy these zines? And they think you mentioned it, but they missed it. And I'll put your website also in the chat. I think maybe there's a link on drifterzine.com.
Yeah, definitely. You can see some there. You can also just message me right after the conference. I can also put my Instagram. Some of them are not listed yet. You see a lot of drifter zine stuff and in our website, but my personal zines, I've not listed them yet. They will be soon. So I think social media is another way. So I'll put my Instagram link right now.
And I put a link for your Aquarius Love zine. It's at Edendale Branch Library and Felipe de Neve Branch Library in the zine collection. So it is cataloged, and in the details it says text in Spanish and English, and it says publisher Mexico City, Mexico. So I love that zines are cataloged in libraries all over the world, including the Los Angeles Public Library. Thank you. And Addie wants to ask a question by national, international relations question. Go for it, please.
Thank you, Ziba, for allowing, I'm just so into this, so I had to like ask questions now. And I think you've all actually, when I was listening to Ivan, I kind of was thinking about this. And then one thing I forgot to say that I don't want to miss is I want to give a shout out to the International Relations Committee of Reforma for putting this together and bringing this together. And I can certainly see why. So these folks are amazing, but I'm hearing it a little bit from Ivan in terms of language and cross like kind of cultural sharing and collaboration and making it accessible in multiple languages. I heard it a little bit from Rosa in terms of the indigenous languages and Medar in terms of creating community. But I think more specifically, I'd like to know, how has your involvement with zines or your creative process and also just making zines kind of created those cross border, international, binational collaborations, or brought you in spaces where you are sharing, beyond your local communities and creating those communities. And anybody can answer this, or all of you can answer this, but for me, that's a very interesting way of, and I can imagine a very creative way of creating those connections and expanding the community.
I guess I can take that. For me, lately, I've noticed that I'm Dominican, and so I think I basically rely on the visual of my work to cross that barrier. But I did, and I did go to the Dominican Book Fair this past year, and I collaborated with my dad, who translated my work for me. But regardless, I essentially, I feel like a lot of, and this, I guess this answers more the question from the perspective of not specifically with zines, but just my creative process. I think for me, I feel like I remember saying this probably more than 15 years ago, whenever it was that I decided I wanted to become a visual artist. Because even if, for example, my work was written in Spanish, I would think about my grandmother, who never even got to learn to read or write. So and who did most of raising me. So I think a lot of what I remember, especially during my grandmother's later years, was how much time we spent together coloring. And it was it was a language that, regardless of her ability to read or write, she understood. So I think when I was younger, I leaned into wanting to make visual work because of its ability to transcend language barriers of all sorts. And then naturally, I think what happened to me, and what I think happens to anyone who visits the country that they come from, or their family's country, people who are immigrants, is you either embrace your heritage, or for me, my heritage embraced me, right? Like, it was almost like I couldn't leave if I couldn't escape my identity if I wanted to. The Dominicans claim me, I claim Dominicans, so it's something I'm proud of. But that's just the experience of being, a so-called foreigner. It's like we we're everywhere, is what I like to say, and we find each other, we look for each other, and it's almost similar to music too. It's like you can be anywhere in the world and you can hear a specific sound, and you know that maybe your people are near, or something like that, But anyway, that's just what comes to mind in response to what you just said.
I can go next to it. Yeah, so similar to what Medar was saying, a lot of it has to do with the like the self and heritage and my own background. I wanted to know more because when I was little and when I was in Mexico with my dad, not hearing Spanish and hearing Nahuatl being spoken, and then you know, listening to it again as an adult when I went to visit my grandmother, but hearing it again, it was familiar to me. And to me, I think that that was the moment that I was like, you know, I wanted to learn more and more, and the reasons why it was that we don't speak that, or at least here, as a Mexican American, and I never heard of it anywhere else, and wanting to say, hey, this is actually something that, well, it's actually an endangered language, to be honest, and it's still spoken by millions of people and throughout the world, not just Mexico. You know, they study it, and universities, like I was mentioning earlier, but it was sort of erased in a way that the culture behind it, a lot of words in Spanish do come from Nahuatl. And in the zine, actually, there's like a few words like avocado, tomato, and in that part, we do have the word in English, Spanish, and Nahuatl to kind of show the breakdown of that. But I guess it just goes back to language and communication, and going back to the ancestral roots of that, and wanting to show you know, everyone else that this is a language that this is, even if they don't know that it exists, a lot of people might have that same ancestry that are of Mexican descent, especially first generations. And yeah, so it just goes back to that. And luckily, moving forward, hopefully, I mean, not like, but hopefully there will be more collaboration between this organization, EDS, and myself and others. And yeah, there's a lot of different ways to go about it moving forward. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Where can we get your zine, by the way, if libraries want to purchase your zine?
Yeah, I have a few copies, and then I do plan to do different issues in the near future. So I guess if you want to stay in touch, I can share my email here, and just, you know, email me.
Thank you. I think we heard from Rosa, Medar. What about Ivan? Oh, and Addie has a comment that they have a Nahuatl night. Oh, nice.
It's
That's
falling
awesome.
apart, but it's the favorite of my nieces and nephews to play, and that's why it's falling apart, because it was made with, I think, not that many resources. But I love that they are taking the words, we were talking about the words, Rosa, And they're now like saying the words and teaching it to their parents just from playing the loteria. So just sharing that language.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you as well, Rosa, for reviving indigenous languages as well, to like have it more in just our shared culture, really. We kind of think of Mexico as only being predominantly Spanish, right? But that is a colonial language to English. So, there's that phrase like English is Spanish. So yeah, I mean, with me, it's just that trying to make more of a connection with outside of the immediate community of Los Angeles, where most of us are based in. It's really just that connection to a childhood home, but also a more shared connection to the future, because even though I'm based here, there is a zine scene happening in Mexico City, for example, or even border towns. So Tijuana, Mexicali, other states in Mexico where this creativity happens. So I've just found it through gatherings, and mainly the fairs are important for that reason, especially when it's open internationally, that we can all just be at one place if we're able to travel. And from that, I've gotten more, a bit more knowledge on some contemporary writers that I've been able to translate into English. And we then have this connection to continue pushing forward their voices, now translated into a different language. And so continuing that exchange is really important. At the same time, we're kind of uncovering voices that have been either left behind, or if someone is more emerging, we can get their work out there more, quicker. So it's really helpful that we continue this exchange as much as we can.
Thank you all for your answers. My next question kind of goes into what we all already said. What role does community play in your zine making practice? So we can also do the next question, or both at the same time, which is what advice would you give to someone making their first zine? So I'll go back to our order as in the graphic with Rosa.
Yeah, so if you want to start making anything, I guess whatever does inspire you to, if it's photography or something about recipes, or any type of theme to get you started, that's the advice I would give you. And also, it doesn't have to be, I guess, super fancy. It's not something that you have to pay a lot of money to make, actually. And I guess that's the good part about scenes in general. And like, for example, thinking back with my students, it's their first time making a scene. And first the whole class is about researching a topic, right? And locating resources, having a mix of credible sources. I do have a list of what type of sources they're able to use for their zine, and then they make it through Canva, and that's a way that they can have accessibility by not paying anything. And yeah, so at first, they're not used to that, but once they allow themselves to get look at the options and get more creative, that's when they start to realize, oh, okay, it's something. And obviously I give feedback, but that's one way I do encourage students, and the reason why I also think this is something important, that they are in touch with themselves, like they get into that creativity mode, because at the end of the day, it's something that they themselves can feel proud of once it's finished, and they can say, hey, I published something, even though it's not through a book publisher, but they themselves did it. And so that's the, I guess, the spirit of it all, of the scene making. And yeah, so I've had students do a scene on German Shepherds, and one of the other ones that I can remember is how to raise a chameleon. And they have to research the topic, but they're still being creative and something that they care about. So it goes hand in hand. So I think yeah, the advice is just think of something that you've been wanting to do and just go for it. And yeah, and even if it's not to share with the world, and just for you, then yeah, that's still okay.
And you have a question from Isabel. Does Canva have zine templates that you use with students? If not, how do they go from Canva to a zine product?
Okay, that's a good question. So yeah, I actually presented on this at 2 ALA conferences ago at the Scene Pavillion, but what I do is technically format the template, which would be a 5.5 by 8, kind of like it would be like half a page, but when the settings are there, I just can't remember off the top of my head, but when they download the file, it'll be a PDF front and back, so it'll be a booklet. So but yeah, I can send you that those dimensions later, Ziba, and maybe you can share with others.
Thank you. I also put a link in the chat to lazine.com/resources. We have free tutorial, make an 8-page zine, and we have it in a PDF in English and Spanish for instructions on how to make an 8-page zine on that.
And yeah, thank you. And one thing I forgot to say is that you can actually upload your own photos. So it doesn't have to be the Canva, the stock images that are there. You can, obviously upload your own, and that's how I did mine, my own zine, and taught students how to use that, and aside from researching topics and stuff like that. But yeah, there's many others. I think other people have used Illustrator, I believe, but I think for that might be a little bit too advanced for students generally. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And then an anonymous attendee asks, do any panelists have examples of their zine that they can hold up or provide a link or show a quick slideshow? I know we saw some from Ivan, and I put some links to some from Medar and Ivan from the library. But if anyone wants to do a show and tell as well, and I'll go on with the question in the meantime for Medar. What advice would you give to someone making their first zine?
I would say get messy. Take out all get messy. Get out all your markers, your crayons, your scissors. Get your old magazines that you don't mind cutting up. get your glue out and just start getting messy, cut it all up and put it all together. Just have fun. If you're not having fun, then you're doing it wrong. That's basically what I would say. I would encourage people to make like a book dummy if they really want to go about it in a very formal fashion. For example, even if you are doing your zine digitally and you want several copies, I would advise that as you're creating the digital version in front of you on your computer, you have a dummy version in your hand so that you think about the flow, you think about what I was saying earlier regarding spreads versus single pages. You think about how two pages look next to each other. These sort of things will make your zine only that much better. But get messy. That's what I would say. Cut things up, glue things down, get colorful, staple things in, have things that fold out, have things that are falling out of the zine when you open it. Make little pockets in your zine. Make it so that it's almost impossible to make more than two copies of it. Make really wild zines and then worry about, the logistics after the fact. That's my answer.
Thank you for that answer. Yeah, I like that too. And what about Ivan? What do you suggest for someone making their first scene? What advice would you give?
Yeah. So tackle what you know, what you want to know as well, but that you are enjoying the process. It is something that you don't have to see it as a I don't know, job commitment, something like that. Doesn't have to wear you down. But zine making, just like any other creative activity, is to kind of explore your own curiosity. So really, a zine could be about anything, and the format itself transcends any kind of formula there is for making books. So you could have a zine one of a kind. There's no other like it, but we'll have, just keep in mind that it's unique, right? But if you want to share this zine with the world, it's also you could make it so that it's only one piece of paper folded in the classic 8-page format, and you have a mini zine. But also something that I found is really helpful is to find a group of friends to make this with, because by yourself you could feel lost, or simply like there's all these ideas and I just want to focus on one, and maybe doing a zine collaboratively, whether it's one or up to 4 people, you could create something together. And at the moment that you're workshopping, you could borrow ideas from each other. So that is probably biggest advice, to get a group of friends or family to create a zine.
We have some great questions in the chat as well being answered. This is a great conversation. Thank you all, says Lisa. Can you talk about the difference between zines and graphic/comic novels in terms of spirit and overlap, and perhaps zines becoming novels and vice versa? And Madar tapped, many comics start off as zines. And I think so as well. When I go to Comic-Con, I see a lot of mini comics, but to me, I'm like, oh, these are zines. So I know some places have Zine Con, but I see so much overlap. Anyone else want to chime in?
Yeah, to that point, I think a comic is it's almost like, if you think about it as music, like a comic is a genre. So a comic can be in book form or in zine form. Think of zines as like the income, like think of zines as like a cassette tape or something, right? Like a cassette tape can have somebody speaking or it can have somebody singing. And then comics are like the type of music that is inside the cassette tape, right? Comic is one, but the zine can be a poetry zine, it can be a photography zine, it can be a comics zine. And then so that's my response to that. Zines becoming novels, I think, happens when there is so many zines that now you really want to start thinking it's not even it's too big maybe for it to be a small zine anymore. And that's maybe why they stop being zines and then they become novels, because there's a spine now and there's a name on the spine, and usually zines are stapled or sewn. But if there's 200, 300 pages, you're not going to be able to staple it anymore as easily. So you might create a novel instead, or you might sell it to a publisher, or a publisher might approach you and say, hey, I have a collection of all of your zines. Would you like to publish it into a book length? So that's what, based on my experience, how I can answer that.
Yeah, same, going off of that. Scene in itself, it's the format of how, you have books or you have magazines, right? Or you have articles inside journals, like journal, like scholarly journal. So scene is just another format that doesn't require an extensive amount of time to get that information out there. It doesn't have to go through a lengthy review process, because most of the time it might just be your own ideas that you have to speak up on different various topics, or for the most part, historically it's been used to speak up against social issues, things like that, without having a filter or having someone to censor it. So I know many of you might know that, but yeah, so I think, yeah, like Medar was saying, you can have comics in zines, and in order, like, for scenes to become novels, that might be there might be volumes, like this is issue 1, issue 2. That depends on the person, whoever's publishing it, self-publishing it. Yeah, and it might take years to do another one, who knows, right? But yeah, I think there's a lot of freedom with that, so, and a lot of overlap for sure.
Thank you. And keep on asking questions, participants. We have almost 50, so feel free, or we'll go on with my questions. So what are some accessible ways to get started with zine making, which may be similar to the last question? What advice would you give to someone making their first zine, but maybe they're done with their first zine, or they need accessible ways to get started with zine making? So I'll go to Rosa first for this. Go ahead.
Yeah, accessible ways would be, well, I can think of the public libraries that might have the workshops, webinars, watching people, like for example this panel, to start making, and for the most part, I believe they don't cost anything. And then if you don't have internet or reliable internet, again, you can go to a public library to use a computer if you're curious about how to make a zine digitally, you can use Canva. Some people use PowerPoint as well, or Microsoft Word even, or Google Docs. There's a lot of good resources that are out there, and that's pretty much how I ended up making zines, is just by learning from others, and yeah, that's pretty much.
Thank you. What about from Medar? How would you find some accessible ways to get started with zine making?
The most accessible way, it's funny, I'm gonna try to do it really quickly, but if you have a single piece of paper, right? This is the most accessible way to make a zine. I can fold the piece of paper like this. First I fold it in half. Then I fold it in half again. And then I fold it in half again. I think Yvonne mentioned the mini zine. This is a mini zine, right? So when I have I end up with this, right? I don't have scissors on me, so I'm gonna rip it. But this section right here, you just rip it right there. Or I'm sorry, you you cut it with scissors so that there's kind of like a hole like this, right? And then you fold that like this. I mean, if you look up mini zine, you'll find it, but I did want to just do a little show and tell about how this works. So then you end up with this little mini zine. You see, you got a front page. I folded it terribly, but you got a 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a back page. So this is a mini zine with one single piece of paper. On the back, you can make a little like a poster, because this poster image is not going to show in your pages because it's going to be on the inside of these pages. You see? So that's the most accessible zine you can make. It's a single piece of paper. And the great thing about this approach is I can hand draw each page or write and just glue in whatever I want in each page. And I don't have to actually think about formatting at all, because once I'm done with that, I just take it to the copy machine and make as many copies as I want, and then make sure that I fold it and staple it. I mean, no stapler even. I fold it and cut it the right way. It doesn't get more accessible than that, I don't think. Any other way, you know, similar to what Rosa was saying, there's a million resources online. I think one of them was shared already, one of the links for different formats, but that is the most accessible way, and that's how I went about it. I used to have a stack of these that I would sell in train stations, or I would be on the train handing them out. And my whole thing was, back when I used to have social media, I used to say, I'll sell this to you for $1, or I'll give it to you for free if you follow me right now on social media. And I got a lot of followers. I didn't make much money, but I got a lot of followers. So yeah, there's a million. The zines as a format is the most accessible form of publishing to begin with. So by definition, zines are accessible. But that's the. I hope that was fun to watch.
Oh, thank you. I hope people are inspired and following along and making one right now while you're listening and taking notes. It's a great way to take notes, is to make your mini zine and use that as your notepad. It's just a piece of paper. And then we have Yvonne. What about your tips for accessible ways to get started with zine making?
Yeah, I really started with the classic 8-page folding, and continue to do so for a lot of zines, but also workshops are fairly accessible throughout institutions and collectives. So if you take part in a workshop, especially at zine fairs, they're free. and we'll have materials for you. So you don't even have to worry about bringing any material you're creating on the spot. Some even offer printing certain things, like if you want something very specific. So thankfully, there is some things budgeted for, to have these resources. And also when you are already over that step of, okay, I know how to fold a piece of paper. I even know how to make I have this little fun one. It's like an accordion zine, and it's kind of like, a certain pattern to cut. And this is when I called it OG Kuka. It's kind of like a cockroach odyssey. But let's say you even have that down. There are workshops that are not necessarily free, and usually what you have to keep in mind is that a place charging a fee is usually to cover material costs or even the facilitator. We some folks try to make a living as artists, and the fee that goes into it is their time and also for you to acquire a new skill. But in Los Angeles, there's Heavy Manners Library, and they are an independent library, but located in Echo Park. But they do a lot of RISO workshops, a lot of binding, a special type of binding workshops. So you are kind of getting that experience, and will definitely help you get to a scene that's more elaborate. So those are all avenues for accessing zine making. At the place I work at, I'm programs manager at Beyond Baroque Literary Arts Center, and on May 31st, we're having a Zine Fest. We're calling it Bunk Zine Fest, as it is a book celebration by an Afro-Latino writer named Marcus Clayton. And he just put out a memoir / creative nonfiction book that just highlights his experiences as an Afro-Latino growing up in LA. But with that, we wanted to also keep all the DIY spirit, and we're having a mini zine fest in our garden area, and we'll have some punk bands playing. So if you are in LA, come through to that event. Everyone here is invited. And one last thing, just I wanted to share a visual of what a layout of the mini zine could look like on your screen. These are a couple of zines that I made a few years back, but this is from this one I called it just Ando en Echo Park, and it's all photography of the location. You would start with a template, but you'd have these many squares or rectangles actually, the same way that Medar showed analog style. Like this is the digital translation of it, and you have page 1 here, and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think so this one is the template digital, and you can find these online everywhere. Google Images, probably something will pop up, but this is the most accessible way. I made one just for my partner. This is a Christmas ornament that is up on our Christmas tree. So this is just a scene for us. It's not available anywhere, right? But and this is the sort of like the rough sketch of a new zine. I've not finished it, but trying to. So yeah, this is what you can expect if you were to use Canva specifically. This is all being done in Canva. So you can see I've used it a few times.
Thank you for sharing. That gives us a nice visual and everyone can see how Canva works. And one attendee said they love this presentation. Creativity is amazing. And before this panel presentation, they had a limited view of what a zine was, but listening to the panelists, they have a lot of ideas they can use for programming and outreach. And they thank everyone so much. And we're almost at the end of our webinar. So my very last question, how do you share and distribute your zines? And I'll do it reverse. So Ivan, you're on. How do you share and distribute your zines?
A lot of Zineverse, that's the main way to distribute them. I also sometimes go around bookstores and ask them if they would be interested in carrying my zines on consignment. That means that there's a split. They keep 40% or 50% of any sales that are made. That is if you are selling them. If you are just giving them out for free, then usually they have a free section. That's one. And wherever that the LA Public Library, also the local branches, wherever they take zines, I've tried to also have them up in their shelves around my community at least. And any shows, even there are some shows where they like to combine music with art, and sometimes there's artist tabling, and that's just also another way to have your zines out there. And lastly, also having them up on a website. We have, in my case, I have Drifter Zine. They're available through shipping. And yeah, those are all good ways to distribute them.
Oh, thank you so much. And I think, Medar, you have it on your website or you have it as a PDF. I know I got the email and I printed out and added to the library. So it's very easy to share your one that we have here. And any other tips on how do you share and distribute your zines or mini comics or work?
Yeah, I mean, like I was mentioning earlier, I used to do it in train stations, on the train, and I used to in any event where I felt like people who might be interested would like it, I used to just put it all over the place. Like I would just like literally litter it everywhere, on tables and chairs, and hand it out to people. With my last zine workshop, I hit some technical difficulties, so I ended up just sending everybody a PDF. And so it's like a digital zine. So through email even, so yeah, there's a million ways to do it, and I think I've tried every way, and I'm sure there's other ways I haven't tried. But it's usually, but like my favorite way is sending them in the mail. That's like my favorite way, right? Like um I love to still send physical snail mail to friends, family, or whoever is interested in buying it. I just think something about mail is special. You can throw in some stickers and little other surprise things in there too. So that's my favorite way.
Thank you, snail mail. Yes, that's very fun when it's not junk mail and it's personalized. And yeah, the little stickers and things. I really love that. Let's all do that soon again. And Rosa, how do you share and distribute your zines? Maybe Zine Pavilion at the American Library Association, which is where I picked up yours. That's one way to get it to other zine library workers around the nation at the annual conference coming up in Philadelphia. But we got yours in San Diego.
Yeah, so that was the first time that I was vending at a zine fest, but that was in Chicago 2 years ago. And then it's actually whoever's in Chicago that is attending this panel right now. If you're near Quimby's bookstore, it's actually there as well. You can buy it from them. Or I was gonna show very quickly just like the front of it. Am I able to share my screen, Ziba?
Yes, it should let you. Go ahead.
Okay.
World.
Can you see it?
Yes, I see it. Mhm.
Yeah, so this is on Canva, and the dimensions, it's 5x7. So when I print it out by clicking share to download it as a PDF, you go to PDF print, which is best for printing. And after that, it'll be a PDF file, and that you can actually, when you go on Adobe to print, you select the booklet format. That's typically how I do it. But this is just a little brief overview of the zine. So it is used. This was issue 0, actually, not the first issue. This was just an experiment. But for the first issue, it would be the idea was to have more of the Spanish in it as well. But yeah, so it was just, it's not a zine meant to learn Nahuatl. It's mainly to know that these that several words and phrases do come from Nahuatl, and just have different types of themes throughout each issue. And we do have a table of contents. And for example, there's no table of contents in Nahuatl. So we had to do a literal translation of a table, which is translates, in Spanish, it's a mesa. So finding the word that's closest to what a table means, which is tecpantli, and a list of words. So there's no real, table of contents in Nahuatl, so we have to use Spanish because, yeah, so it's pretty much a breakdown of the 3 languages morphed into this zine, and showing a little images from the codices. And yeah, so we do have a dedication to our grandmothers. And yeah, but if you want to send me an email, or this is the map I was referring to earlier of how the EDS started partnering with higher education institutions, universities. Yeah. And let's see. Yeah, so that's one way. And as a like educator, the reason I do want my students to create zines is just so that in case in the future there is a library a zine collection at the library, we would already have zines of our own from our own students that can see themselves on in the library bookshelves, for example. So that's primarily the reason why. And one of the frameworks is that creation as a process. So creating a zine is part of that framework, I believe, and also seeing themselves as the creators of something unique that they can go back to and feel inspired to to maybe even write in the future, a scholarly article or something like that.
Oh, thank you. I love that it's at public libraries, at community colleges, and everywhere you can see zines in the community, and zines are for everyone. And we also inspired Addie to make their first zine about their parejo potero in a bilingual format. So we're so excited, and Elizabeth says wonderful webinar. Thank you to the amazing panelists. And I want to thank you all three so much for answering all the questions and taking everyone's questions. And I've had the pleasure of having you at my Zine Club before. So if anyone else wants to join Zine Club, I do it once a month, and I feature zine makers just like this talking about their zines and what they do. So that's a plug in the chat for joining us monthly and talking more about zines, continuing the conversation. It's also on YouTube archived, so we'll get this online to inspire the world to make zines. So thank you, everyone, and we're gonna end now and look for you all at the next zine event. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ziba.
Bye. Have a good
Thank you
day.
so much. Have a
Bye.
good one.
Thank you.
Um,
So much, everybody. It was